Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Outgrow's Marketer of the Month. I'm your host, Dr. Saksham Sharda. I'm the creative director at outgrow.co. And for this month, we're going to interview Connor Jeffers, who is the founder and CEO at Aptitude 8 and Happily. Thanks for joining us, Connor.
Thanks for having me.
So, Connor, we're going to start with a rapid fire round just to break the ice. You get 3 passes. In case you don't want to answer the question, you can just say pass, but try to keep your answers to one word or one sentence only, okay?
Let's do it.
At what age do you want to retire?
I'd go with never.
How long does it take you to get ready in the mornings?
Like 28 minutes.
Most embarrassing moment of your life?
When I was a kid, I went to a water park and did the little surfing thing where it like blasts water and you stand on it, and I fell down and my shorts blasted off.
Okay, favorite color?
Blue?
What time of day are you most inspired?
Really like late at night.
How many hours of sleep can you survive on?
Oh, survive like 4 or 5. Thrive like probably 7.
Okay. Fill in the blank. An upcoming marketing trend is blank.
I mean, I'll cheat and go like AI powered content.
Okay. The city in which the best kiss of your life happened.
I'll go pass on that one, I guess.
Pick one, Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk.
I'm going Elon.
The biggest mistake of your career.
Oh man, there's a lot. That's how you learn. I'll go pass just because we could spend so much time there. Not so much for shame.
How do you relax?
I like to build Legos.
Like the one behind you, I see.
Like the one behind me, exactly.
How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
2.
A habit of yours that you hate.
I bite my nails.
The most valuable skill you've learned in life.
I'll boil it all down to leadership, I guess.
Okay. And the last one is your favorite Netflix show.
I was really into beef recently. It's great.
Yeah, I'm going to give you 2 more rapid fires because you're so good at them. The movie you like quoting the most.
I have no idea. I feel like I love quoting movies. It's hard to pick one, to be honest with you. I'll go like Goodfellas.
Okay. All right. And the last one is the song you've been listening to recently.
I don't know the name of any songs I've been listening to recently, but I hear the same ones on the same. I do a lot of Ziggy Albert's radio in the morning, which is kind of like indie folk stuff. So I hear the same stuff. I have no idea what any of them are called.
All right. Okay, well, that's the end of the rapid fire round. You scored quite well. Is there any of the questions you want to elaborate on in more detail, or do you want to move on to the longer questions?
I'll do the one that I just said leadership on, because I was thinking about all the different things that I could say there. I think in terms of like most valuable skill would be rallying people to a cause, like garnering trust, committing to a course of action, and sort of like coordinating and orchestrating people and stuff to move in that direction. And I think that that's valuable whether you're, not that I am leading or have ever led a country, but I'd imagine sort of at every layer, right? Whether it's at the highest levels or the lowest levels, super valuable skill.
Okay. All right. So let's go on to the bigger questions anyway now. So can you share with us your journey? Like you told us about the leadership, but tell us about the entire journey and the companies you're working for right now.
Sure. Start to finish. Abbreviated version?
The abbreviated version.
Sure. Abbreviated version for me is I started my career in a venture-backed ed tech business out of Toronto called Top Hat. I left school, started working with them, was an SDR, did some sales stuff, went to the marketing team, ended up leading marketing for a while, did that for several years, and then left, went back to Chicago and worked with a venture studio out of Chicago. So as opposed to sort of a traditional venture model where we're trying to find companies, trying to find deals, trying to deploy capital into them. We had sort of a base of cash, and then we were looking at sort of areas we thought were really interesting, building prototypes and MVPs for them, trying to launch them in market, sort of get traction. And once we started getting a little bit of traction on them, we'd bring in a founder, and then sort of we had an in-house development group, a technology group, a sales and marketing group, which I was leading, and we'd sort of help those companies get up in the air and run. So over about a year and a half, we started 5 different companies. 3 of them are still going, employ lots and lots of people, have raised a bunch of money, doing really, really well. That was a blast. I've basically been chasing that high ever since. Left with one of the other partners at the firm. We had sort of been getting asked by some of the different investors and board members of sort of our portcos on how come when we come to your company's board meetings, they have like metrics and funnels and conversion rates, and they like know what's going on, and every other sort of organization I go and work with, they have no clue what's happening, and like no one is on the same page, and they can't answer some of sort of the questions we're asking. And we'd start to tell them, and then they'd be like, yeah, sure, whatever. Can you just like go help these people out? And so we started doing that a whole bunch, and then split off, started sort of a small consulting firm doing a lot of that work. Decided we wanted to do our own venture studio again, but found out pretty quickly that, without $10 million in the bank, that was like pretty difficult to do. He got an offer from one of our clients to come on full time. He had just had a baby. It kind of made sense for him. And we decided to kind of go our separate ways, which is when I originally sort of started Aptitude 8, which is a HubSpot technical services firm. We originally did HubSpot stuff, Salesforce stuff, outreach stuff, sort of all sorts of different tools in the GTM stack. And we sort of saw this opportunity where I was in Chicago at the time, so I knew the Blue Wolf guys, knew the Model Metrics guys, a lot of the early Salesforce companies that had kind of done really, really well. And as I started to get exposed to HubSpot, sort of 2 things started to become really clear. So one was that HubSpot was kind of on a similar trajectory. They were investing in CRM. They were trying to go and sort of compete with Salesforce in a more legitimate way in the market. But the secondary thing that became really clear is all of the existing HubSpot partners were marketing agencies, and they weren't really technical services companies that were building and integrating and optimizing the platform itself. And so we sort of decided with Aptitude 8 that we were going to do that. Aptitude 8 is 3.5 years old at this point. And then about a year and a half ago, we started looking at the ecosystem side of HubSpot, built something internally called A8 Labs, where we're building sort of apps on top of the platform. I met Dax and Tyrone, who were running App Chemist, which was sort of a company building tiny little apps in the HubSpot marketplace and sort of selling them. Met them, saw the same vision, and then that's when we sort of decided to do what was originally A8 Labs and an extension of Aptitude 8. And then in collaboration with HubSpot Ventures, they invested into what is now Happily, and we sort of spun it out of Aptitude at its core. So really, the long version of the story, if you filter everything all the way down, Aptitude 8 helps people that use HubSpot build solutions for their particular instance in sort of a one-to-one model, and Happily builds products and applications on top of HubSpot that allow any HubSpot customer to sort of add superpowers into their core HubSpot instance. So A8 sort of one-to-one, Happily is sort of many-to-many.
And so there is actually a lot of chatter on HubSpot versus Salesforce. So as someone who has worked with both, how do you break down this big debate?
Yeah, so it's really interesting, right? I think a lot of people that you'll see in the HubSpot ecosystem have sort of been all HubSpot all the time, very SMB focused, and sort of like Salesforce is the big bad wolf. I think it's a little bit more nuanced than that. I built a lot on Salesforce. I to this day, my most technical skill set is still Salesforce. Like I can build anything in Salesforce. I can write Apex. Like started my career on the Salesforce side, and I think that lends itself to a little bit more of a nuanced view. I think what's happening is HubSpot is building a lot more. They're adding a lot more functionality, and the product level gaps are starting to get patched, right? And so, like, a year ago it was, oh, well, you can't even have custom objects in HubSpot. Now you can do that. You can't even write code in HubSpot. Now you can do that. You can't even customize the UI in HubSpot. Now you can do that. And so I think that like a lot of these obstacles and barriers just start to continuously get knocked down. And there's still a couple as of this moment where like, if you need hyper level data security, so you've got multiple teams, you do HIPAA, you deal with PII, you have whatever the sort of multiple countries, whatever it is that sort of requires a high level of data security, you're probably going to end up on Salesforce, because Salesforce has just an incredibly robust suite of data security and data control tools that lend itself to all sorts of problems that lots of people who have worked with Salesforce are accustomed to, but it has the functionality and it's really, really powerful. The second layer is if you want to build sort of like your own application, right? So you don't want to have this CRM or something that has pre-built functionality or pre-powered features. You really want to say, I'm trying to build something completely custom and I'm just looking for a platform to accelerate doing that. And the reason I want to do that is I want to have very discrete, like screens that someone has to go through in a certain way. I only want to show certain information. I really want to build something that's specific and tailored. And if you want to do that, Salesforce is the best product in the market to achieve that. If you're really anybody else, and I would put like 99% of organizations sort of like in the other category, right? And that is, I'm trying to look for a tool that enables my marketing team, my sales team, my service team to do their jobs better, be more effective, collaborate, execute, sort of empower them to do what they want to do. And I'm willing, and I don't need like, it's not I'm willing to compromise. It's like, I don't need crazy high levels of custom built, custom developed functionality. Like, HubSpot is now a very, very viable option. And not only viable, we actually see for a lot of different organizations, whether you are a PLG focused organization, you're an inbound focused organization, you're anything that is more individual and customer centric versus like purely outbound driven model. HubSpot actually does better for those organizations. And so it's not a function of like, oh, well, HubSpot's a little cheaper. It's a little bit easier to use. It's a little bit more, adoptable by my team. Like, those are all really good reasons, but there's also a very good reason, which is like, it works better for my company and it works better for my use case. And that's true in addition to all of the other sort of things that people like to talk about.
And how about integrations? How do HubSpot and Salesforce compare when it comes to integrating with other tools and systems commonly used by businesses?
Yeah. So HubSpot has a super giant marketplace, the same as Salesforce, right? There's this huge, huge swath of applications in the HubSpot ecosystem you can go look at that integrates with sort of every business application under the sun. Salesforce, sort of in the olden days, right, was the original innovation. Salesforce had lots of innovations, but one of the big innovations that they originally had was around the app marketplace and the app exchange, and being able to have people actually build on platform and install stuff. That's happening in HubSpot. So that's what Happily does as a business. Again, HubSpot Ventures portfolio company, like HubSpot's going in this direction. It's early days. So really any application that already exists in the ecosystem, you're going to find a way to integrate any of those things with HubSpot, either because they have out of the box integrations that are one click installs and they add functionality into HubSpot and you can integrate them, right? So whether it's like a ClickUp or an Asana or a Greenhouse or whatever it might be that you sort of work with, a Slack, you want to actually connect that data in. What's still really early days is building applications on top of HubSpot that actually run natively inside of HubSpot. So for example, we have two apps with Happily that I think are good examples of this. One is Zebra. So Zebra it's sort of a super robust Stripe integration. We take your whole Stripe data model, we re-replicate it in HubSpot. We create subscription objects, transaction objects. We let you create, administer, manage anything inside of Stripe, all from HubSpot. So if you're a SaaS company, you can send a quote to somebody, collect a credit card, provision a subscription. You can automate your renewals, all that cool stuff. And then you can sort of do upgrades, downgrades, whatever else it might be, all from within inside of HubSpot. And that's like an app built on top of HubSpot, as opposed to like another product that's just integrating in. And then we have a Orchestrate, which is all native event management that we're launching later this year. And it's early days for HubSpot apps that are built on top. But in terms of integrations, almost every major business application that you'll run into, and tons and tons of tiny ones, all have integrations into HubSpot. And then what we sort of see on the Aptitude 8 side is HubSpot has tons and tons of APIs. They're adding more and more extensibility functionality every single day. And what we do with Aptitude 8 is sort of do custom integrations, which is beyond, I need this sort of out of the box thing. And I actually need this very, very custom functionality or custom user journey or workflow. And you can build all of that on HubSpot, extensive APIs, objects, everything you might want to have.
So you mentioned that HubSpot has evolved over the years. Could you tell us in more detail what has that looked like from the perspective of Aptitude 8?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the evolution actually starts before we were even in the mix. So I think if you think about HubSpot over time, HubSpot sort of originates in. I should pull up my little diagram here that like helps me think about this. But the origin sort of like of HubSpot as an organization, right? So HubSpot sort of like started in 2006, and from 2006 to 2014, HubSpot's a marketing software company. So they have landing pages, they have emails, they have contacts, they have list building, all very marketing centric. And honestly, I think up to 2014, modern day MailChimp is basically what HubSpot was, right? Super, super basic functional marketing software. With sort of their IPO, and they sort of added in the original Sales Hub functionality in 2014. That's when they sort of were this SMB growth software company. So the original sales tool, I think, was like it had sequencing, it had email tracking, it had calendar booking, like very, very simple sales level functions. And then in 2017, they launched Service Hub. And so now they had sort of like the marketing piece, the sales piece, some light service piece with ticketing and some other functionality there. And that was kind of like what I would call the SMB CRM product arena, right? So, and that lasted through 2021. And then in 2021, everything kind of changed. And so when I think about what do we do at Aptitude 8, and I think Aptitude 8 was sort of like early to seeing this trend happen. And then Happily is really born out of this occurring in and of itself, which is in 2021, two really big things happened. One is HubSpot launched custom objects, which you boil down to like one feature, one thing, but it's actually huge because what it means is instead of you trying to fit your business into HubSpot and like what's going to be my companies, what's going to be my tickets, what's going to be my deals, and the cardinal problem to solve was how do I adapt the way I do things into this software that's going to help me do them better. To now you can build whatever you want. If you want an order object, if you want a machine object, if you want a factory object, if you want a location object, you can do all of that. You can put whatever you want in the platform. And now you can really expand the functionality of HubSpot to any data model, any business, any organization, any structure. And custom objects really fundamentally changes what's a product with features to a platform with sort of functionality. And that's part one. And part two is coded actions, operations hub, and the ability to end serverless functions and running code inside of HubSpot. And so what happens is when you add those two features, you take HubSpot's world-class sort of automation engine, you take all of their sales, their service, their marketing functionality, but then you extend and expand on all of that functionality by being able to add any level of customization, custom development, custom functionality into the platform itself that all runs on top of HubSpot. And so not only does it allow for companies like Happily to go and build apps on top of HubSpot and sell them to HubSpot customers, but it allows for companies like A8 to work with organizations that are saying, hey, I'm trying to deliver this really unique custom experience to my end users. And like, how should we do that? And we can say, oh, we can build that for you and we can do it on top of HubSpot. And that's when you take HubSpot from sort of this SMB CRM product to really a mid-market and enterprise CRM platform that you can build all sorts of really cool functionality on top of.
And so, what are some of the organizations you're working with, and what are some of the common challenges that businesses face when implementing and utilizing a CRM? And how do these challenges differ when looking at HubSpot versus Salesforce?
Yeah, I can do some logo drops, but I'll keep it short. We work with lots of companies that aren't as famous. So we work with like Uber Freight, South by Southwest. We actually did all of inbound. So for HubSpot's annual event, sort of like the website, the ticketing, like all of the functionality that supports the event itself. We built all of that on HubSpot as well. But I think in terms of the types of challenges that organizations typically face, right? You sort of have like base level, everyone has these CRM level challenges, which is like, my data's a mess. I have no source of truth. I can't figure out what the right answer is. I'm trying to like, I have a business process, but maybe it isn't super well followed. And the way we manage our process is not managed and dictated by the system, but rather like we manage everything in spreadsheets and then just like log contacts in the CRM so we can track emails we sent them. Like those are kind of like the base level things. And I think those are universal. No matter what product you use, no matter anything you use, you need like sort of a core RevOps strategy to manage those things. But I think that those elements are pretty universal. things that get more interesting that we're starting to see customers starting to build that get me really excited. And this is the kind of stuff that like used to be Salesforce only, right? Like, and they had Visualforce pages and they had Apex code. And like, if you were trying to build a custom application for your business, but that application is intended to serve your users. So it's supposed to be your salespeople, your service people, something for them to be able to do, whether it's inventory lookup, whether it's a return flow, whether it's a uh, what are some crazy things that we've seen? Pricing calculator, CPQ type stuff, like all of those things, right? If you're trying to build those applications and you needed something really custom, Salesforce was the way to go because it was the only way to have sort of the out of the box functionality, even though most of the Salesforce functionality isn't quite out of the box, sort of the native functionality plus custom stuff. And what I get really excited about is some of the new features on HubSpot that are very developer friendly, developer focused, customization focused that we're delivering for customers, where we just had a client that we went and custom built this entire like booking quoting situation where they sell ad space, and the ad units are changing all of the time because there's this sort of this dynamic inventory. There's 100 sales reps, they're all selling stuff all the time. I could be on the phone with you talking about this placement, and by the time you're like, okay, cool, I think that sounds good, I'm like, great, it's gone, like somebody else just bought it. And so that's a really dynamic, high speed type of environment. And what we've built for them is sort of a custom CRM extension on HubSpot that allows them to be able to have that dynamically refresh in the background, have sort of a CPQ type of engine that the sales reps can navigate and refresh with what's in the inventory and what they can expose. And so that type of a user journey is something that HubSpot just like honestly within the last 6 or 8 months has been capable of building. And the speed at which we're seeing that adapt is so fast. And I think what we're going to see is more and more companies realize that the trade-off you used to have was, I'm kind of taking us back to the Salesforce concept, but used to be, if I want a high level of customization, if I want a high level of extensibility, I need to make tons of compromises on usability. I need to make tons of compromises on accessibility. I need to make tons of compromises on adoption. And that was just like the two sides of the coin. And I think the way that HubSpot's approaching it today is sort of like, why can't we do both? And I think they're executing on both. And I think what we get excited about is seeing more and more organizations realize that they can have their cake and eat it too. And those challenges don't necessarily mean that you have to go with systems that are really going to slow you down just so that you can power something that's really unique to kind of your experience.
So you also talked about artificial intelligence in the rapid fire round. In what ways is HubSpot evolving towards that or trying to implement that within it?
Yeah, I'm really excited about AI in general, but I think also specifically in CRM and sort of where I focus in HubSpot for sure. But I think one, you see sort of the outward facing stuff. So HubSpot now has, I think, live right now, and I'll try to keep my what's secret and beta versus what's public as clear in my mind as I can. But I think things that exist right now, one, you have sort of like AI content assistant. So anywhere in HubSpot that you're building content, whether it's landing pages, blogs, web pages, emails, whatever it might be, you can highlight different sections. You can have it rewrite stuff. You can have it suggest stuff. You can have it trim things down. Anyone who's used ChatGPT, very, very similar, right? But imagine that embedded in your content creation flow. So I'm writing something, I'm creating something, I'm writing a blog. I clone that blog and I say, rewrite this blog, but instead of it being about lawnmowers, make it about, I started this metaphor thinking I had a really good idea of lawn care equipment, and I realized I don't. So let's call it I know lawnmowers and weed whackers. So rewrite this blog post. Instead of about lawnmowers, let's write it about weed whackers. And it'll like spit out a first version for you right in the content editor. Like that's huge. I think the secondary, that's all also in the sales tool. So if you have the sales extension in your Gmail account, or if you're emailing back and forth directly from the CRM, it can first draft email replies for you. It can edit an email reply where you write back to a prospect this like 8-paragraph thing and you're like, this doesn't work. Like, let's trim this down to a couple bullets. It'll do that automatically. And then what we're seeing that's early days, but I think I get really excited about, are things like ChatSpot. So ChatSpot, Dharmesh, HubSpot CTO, and one of the original founders, sort of has this group that is separate from, I say separate, but inside of HubSpot. But he has his own product team that's all dedicated to ChatSpot, which is essentially what would happen if we took a natural language chat interface and applied it to CRM. So you can run reports, you can create data, you can query things, you can access pieces. And I think what gets me really excited is, and it's super early days on this stuff, but like a huge function that I did at the very beginning of this business was I would sit down with VPs of sales, VPs of marketing, and I would just talk to them about like, what do you want to report on? How do you want it to look like? And we would like build them the marketing dashboard for the quarter, right? Like, this is how I want to see this data. Here's my x-axis. Here's my y-axis. They can tell me all of that stuff. What they lack is the hands-on keyboard execution ability to say like, and this was Salesforce, but like, how do you build that report? How do I make it look the way I want it to look? What data set do I want to grab? And like, that whole exchange doesn't need to exist anymore. You can just go straight to that executive, and that executive says, I want a report of all of my MQLs from the last quarter with the y-axis being quantity and the x-axis being week. And like, ChatSpot right now can be like, cool, great, boom, here's a report. And that report exists in HubSpot, and you can add it to a dashboard. And like, that sort of exchange is sort of where I see all CRM user interface stuff going. And the thing that makes me think that HubSpot in particular is very, very well positioned for it is Salesforce is an amalgamation of products that they have acquired and bought over the last 20 years, and they have slapped a Salesforce logo on. They've integrated them, sometimes natively, sometimes like kind of janky, by just sort of passing data back and forth and hiding the API calls. But HubSpot is one whole code base, one whole feature set. And if you think about it like one database with different user level functionalities layered on top, what that means is that when HubSpot goes and adds AI functionality, it works across every single piece of the platform, and it works across every single user profile. Whereas when Salesforce says, hey, we want to add AI functionality, I'm going to add that to Sales Cloud. I'm going to add that to Service Cloud. I'm going to go and develop a completely different thing for Marketing Cloud, a completely different thing for Pardot, and a completely different thing for the next product. And what that means is that HubSpot's ability to rapidly iterate and deploy and put those functionality in front of users, I think is going to be a lot faster. And as anyone who builds software knows, the speed at which you can iterate and go through that cycle time is ultimately what influences how great of a product you can actually build. And so I'm really excited about the future of sort of HubSpot plus AI. And I think CRM plus AI is going to reduce I really need to be some kind of a technical expert to leverage this technology to tell it what you want, and it'll do it for you.
And is ChatSpot now widely available? What is the extent of implementation at present?
ChatSpot is widely available. I think it's alpha. It's not even beta, but you can use it. I think it's ChatSpot.ai. It exists right now. You can go to it. You can use it. It's super beta. So if you go in there expecting ChatGPT level magic plus HubSpot, you will be disappointed. But if you go in thinking, hey, I want to interact with this thing and I don't want to go through the HubSpot UI, you'll be like, whoa, this is pretty amazing. And I think for an alpha with a handful of product folks and a handful of engineers working on it, I think it's a really, really good, it's more than a proof of concept, but I think it's an early product that'll really demonstrate what I think the future of most highly technical business applications will be, is just like, what if you could reduce it down to, I don't need to build something and design it and add functionality and train my users. Like, think about an expense application. Like, what? Like, sales rep goes there, is like, hey, I was at this trip, I was meeting with this client, here's my receipts. And like, all of that CRM level functionality in the back end. But the complicated part was like, I have to build this whole UI. I have to build all these buttons. I have to train the sales reps how to use it. They have to not lose the link, like, gone. You just have a rep, goes to it, interacts with it, and all of that back end functionality happens. And I think that's kind of what the future looks like, is all of that kind of goes away.
Right, so switching to Aptitude 8 a little. Aptitude 8 is known for bringing together experts in web operations, revenue operations, marketing operations, and also solutions architecture. So, can you explain how these different areas work together to help businesses grow better for people who are unaware? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's actually funny. I think that for us, we even, I think that tagline, I don't, you'll have to tell me where you lifted that so we can go update it. I think that we used to have all of our teams segregated that way. We don't even look at it that way anymore at all, because we're really looking at how can we build on platform. So what we do ultimately is we help people who are either current HubSpot users, or people who are sort of like, we would describe it as HubSpot curious, right? Implement HubSpot, integrate HubSpot, optimize HubSpot, and deliver custom experiences on top. So think about us as I am a sales, a marketing, a service, an operations leader, maybe an executive. I either am, let's talk about sort of like, I don't use HubSpot today. I'm a Salesforce user. I'm a Dynamics user. Maybe I don't use anything. And it's like, I've got spreadsheets and NetSuite widgets and custom built stuff by this IT guy that works here, but like all he does is maintain the system. And I'm trying to sort of deliver a better experience both for my end customer and for my internal team. So I think there's kind of two things that we see, which is either organizations really compete and win and lose off of how pleasant is and how easy is it to buy from you, and then similarly, how effective are your sales, marketing, and your service folks. And those two things ultimately influence what's your revenue and what are your costs. And so what we do for organizations is really help them be able to deliver really unique, wonderful, incredible buying experiences for those end users, and then similarly, being able to optimize and remove friction for all of your internal employees that are delivering that experience on the other side. And we do that all on top of HubSpot, whether we are configuring and implementing native functionality and just getting you up and running with the CRM itself, or building custom applications, internal or external facing, that run on top of HubSpot in order to sort of optimize those two sides. So we're really like a RevOps focused type of business where we think about that total customer flywheel, and our job is really to eliminate friction from every part of that flywheel, whether it's internal friction or external friction. And we use HubSpot to make that happen.
So could you provide an example where the alignment and coordination between these areas, which you say don't exist anymore, you've kind of combined them, led to significant improvements for a business that you work for?
Yeah, let's do an example. I won't state a name. We have some of this on our site anyway. You can backtrack it. But a really good example. We had a customer. They were an events business, so a big annual conference. They sell tickets. They manage sponsorships. They sort of have a whole bunch of different facets of the business at large. And pre HubSpot, the way that they managed this is they had their core CRM product. They had their finance team working out of the finance system, and they would sell sponsorship flows, right? So every year you have sponsors. They would go to people that sponsored last year's event first. They would ask those folks, hey, you sponsored last year. Would you like to re-up at the same tier? And then what they basically did was like send a mass email of here's what's available still every single week. Here's all the sponsorship tiers that are available. And then they'd end up, what would happen is you'd have a big sponsor. They reserved, the platinum plus tier or whatever it might be. And they didn't sell that to anybody. And then like 3 weeks before the event, and we're like working the deal and working the deal and working the deal and whatever, let's call them, I'll say Toyota. So Toyota is like, hey, we're not going to be able to make that work this year. We had budget cuts, whatever happens. And now you're like, oh shit, I got to go out and I got to like find other people for the Platinum Plus tier. But no one knows that that's happened until that deal collapses. They go to finance, they ask what's going on. Finance does it. And whenever they sell anything to anyone, they have to send it to finance. Finance has to go and update the ERP to say, hey, this got sold, pass it back to sales, update the product listing. And so there's like this multi-day lag time, which when you're talking about an event that happens on a particular day, and you're talking about a demand cycle that like compresses in intensity the closer you get to the actual event. Because if no one buys the Platinum Plus tier, it's worth $0 the day of the event. And so that cycle time crushes their team. And so what we did with HubSpot is, one, we put HubSpot in place, gave them all of the sales and marketing tools, and that's table stakes, right? Salespeople are more effective. They're using sequences. They're booking meetings. Marketers are more effective. They're segmenting leads. They're building customer journeys. All of that's true. All of that's cool. You should be able to get that up and running with HubSpot, candidly, without us or anybody else, or maybe even some light setup. What gets really exciting is that for them, we were able to custom connect their ERP and HubSpot, build them a quoting engine on top of HubSpot. And now what they can do is every time that they have a new sponsorship, one, they can use HubSpot CMS Hub because all the sponsorships exist in the core CRM. Send an email from Marketing Hub to all of the sponsors from last year that says, you have 3 days to claim your sponsorship from last year. And all this is automated, and we can send them reminder emails and everything else. They can click a link, they can go to the site, they can hit claim. That goes in, syncs the ERP, provisions an invoice, emails it to them. No one does anything. All of this is automated. And then at the end of that 3-day period, those can get released from that reserve flow and go into an email that goes to everyone on the list and says, hey, we have these sponsorships. And now we're teeing up salespeople to go and work that list, and then everyone who interacted with it and clicked through and viewed the sponsorship pages and everything else under the sun. And when those sales users actually talk to a prospect, get commitment on a sponsorship tier, lock it in and provision it back to the ERP. It's one click, it's synced, it's automated, and then it removes from all of the available inventory from the other side. And so for their team, the raw component of it is they increase revenue, they increase the speed at which they can sell these sponsorships, and they're able to have a better customer experience because instead of saying, hey, we have this Platinum Plus membership, I'd love to get it to you, it sounds really great, and then I sell it to you, you confirm it, but then 2 days goes by and it went to finance, and finance tells me, oh no, actually Toyota did renew that, so it's no longer available. And now I'm like, oh man, I gotta go call this customer, be like, actually we don't have that anymore, but our gold tier is really, really good, you should buy that instead. And so you get a better customer experience, you get more effective sales and marketing folks. And then they had 2 finance people who every selling season, their entire job is data entry between CRM and ERP, and they're just coordinating with sales and trying to make all this happen. And now those people are out building new functionality for the business and optimizing their financial infrastructure instead of just being stuck in mid-level data entry jobs. You get a better customer experience, you get happier internal users, you get higher efficiency out of your internal team, and the math isn't quite that simple, but all of that leads to sort of lower costs, higher revenue, and as a result, better profitability between those 2 lines.
That's definitely an incredible example from the event side. But if you were to kind of essentialize this to a greater extent, how should businesses be defining success with their CRM? What does success look like to you?
Yeah, I think it's really, really simple. I think, does your CRM make it easier and better for your customers to buy from you? Is like core criteria number 1. And core criteria number 2 is, does your CRM enable your sales, service, and marketing people to do their job better? And I think for most companies, they're like, everyone internally hates our CRM and it slows them down. And they only use it because I tell them they have to log something or else we don't know what's going on. And like, they don't see it as a tool that helps them. And customers, when they interact with folks that have to interface with the CRM, they're like, yeah. Let me get this back to you. I got to provision a quote. That's going to take me a day or 2, and then I'll send it back to you. And it like slows down and worsens the customer experience. And I think your criteria for CRM should be, it improves the experience of your customers and it improves the efficiency of your internal team. And if it doesn't do that, you should be suspect. We'd be happy to talk to you. We'd be happy to sort of take a look and help you out. If it does that and you think it could be doing more of it, same thing. And if you're at Nirvana state, also give me a call. I'd love to learn what you're doing and how, because I think we're all on the quest to the promised land together.
So is there like a magical point from where it's not doing that to when it starts doing that for a lot of companies that you've been working for?
I don't know that there's a magical point. I think that launches are usually bumpy. The first couple of weeks of adapting a new process, a new change is really challenging. And I think that you get to this state a couple of weeks in where somebody's like, I think our favorite is oh, I get it. Like you see the lights come on for somebody who's in sort of a front, and no one likes change, right? Change is hard. You have service or sales or marketing people and they're interacting with the system every day, and like it's changing for them and it's really challenging. And all of a sudden they're like, oh wow, this is working. This makes me better. Like this is more effective. I like this. And that's, I think, the moments that we get really excited about is when that really comes together.
All right. So the last question for you is of a personal kind. What would you be doing in your life if not this right now?
My wife and I talk a lot about getting like a plant and wine store in Brooklyn, but I think that we gotta do this phase well to be able to do that phase. But I think that'd be really fun.
And will you get a HubSpot CRM to manage the plant and wine store?
To manage the whole thing. Exactly.
All right, that was the last question. Thanks everyone for joining us for this month's episode of Outgrow's Market of the Month. That was Connor Jeffers, who's the founder and CEO at Aptitude 8 and Happily. Thanks for joining us, Connor.
Thank you for having me. It was wonderful.
Check out their website for more details, and we'll see you next month once again with another Marketer of the Month.